Jumping in at number 5, we have Belial. Belial, whose name in Hebrew literally translates to worthless or yokeless, was canonized as the leader of the Sons of Darkness in the Dead Sea Scrolls. If you didn't know, the Dead Sea Scrolls are an ancient Jewish text discovered in 1947, which are believed to have been written before 400 BC and refer to a wide host of demonic beings. Seriously, it's spooky how much they name drop them. In these scrolls, Belial is described as both the king of evil and the prince of darkness, which has led many to believe that Belial is a pseudonym of the devil himself. Belial is also known as the Lord of Lies and the Master of Deceit. Many texts refer to Belial as a devious figure who utilizes fornication, wealth, and pollution of the sanctuary to get exactly what he wants. However, in the Satanic Bible, Belial's name is suggested to translate as without a master and symbolizes independence, self-sufficiency, and personal accomplishment. It begs the question, whose side is Belial really on? Coming up at number 4, we have Surgat. In Latin, Surgat literally translates to rise and is the physical manifestation of rebellion and opposition. His angelic opposite is Aquiel. To be honest, Surgat is a minor demon and is pretty weak sauce compared to some of the guys on this list. But the thing that makes him pretty terrifying is his brush with a particular pope. Written between 1150 and 1227, the Grimoire of Honorius was written by Pope Honorius III with the intention of being specifically used by a priest. Pope Honorius was obsessed with the thought of Satan invading the mortal realm, and so began preparing the Catholic Church for a war. He wrote down his findings in this forgotten grimoire, which wasn't unearthed until 1760. Honorius began his training by purposefully summoning demons, and then banishing them again in a sort of weird, spooky, demonic boxing session. It proved quite effective, and the Pope soon started to get a handle on the armies of hell. He'd write down the name of each demon he fought and leave an elaborate explanation of their strengths and weaknesses. Kind of like a Pokédex, but for demons. That is until he came face to face with Surgat. All that was written in his section of the grimoire was that Surgat is he who opens all locks. That was the last demon that Pope Honorius noted down in his book. Makes you wonder what happened, eh? Next up at number 3, we have the Great Duke of Hell, Berith. Also referred to as Baal-Berith, this guy is a pretty formidable dude. Known in the Infernal Dictionary as the Great Duke of Hell, Berith commands 26 legions of demons and is a pretty big player in the fiery depths below. According to Aleister Crowley's illustrated Goetia, those that attempt to speak with Berith soon learn that he's a formidable liar. Crowley refers to him as speaking with a clear and subtle voice, and is a liar when not answering questions. To speak with Berith, the conjurer must wear a silver ring and hold it clearly to their face in respect to the Great Duke. If not, Berith will consume the conjurer for not sincerely paying their respects. Berith is often depicted as a soldier, dressed in red clothes, riding a red horse, and wearing a golden crown. His main function is to corrupt those that crave power, and is often found lingering on both sides of a war. In 1612, a nun from Aix-en-Provence was possessed by Berith. During the exorcism, Berith gave up his own name, as well as the names of all the other demons possessing her, but also the names of the saints who would be most effective in opposing them. That guy loves a good fight. Bringing it up at the rear at number 2, we have Pazuzu. Dating back to ancient Mesopotamia, Pazuzu is the king of the demons of the wind. He is the bearer of storms and the bringer of drought, and is often depicted with the body of a man, the head of a dog, and the talons of an eagle. In the possession case of Roland Doe, the story that inspired The Exorcist, Pazuzu is the chief demon that possesses the boy. He is known to be an incredibly intelligent demon, and is renowned for scheming and corrupting the pure of heart. He takes most pleasure, though, from corrupting the purest of the pure, and is often depicted trying to possess children for sport. It is also thought that Pazuzu predates most other demons, and is thought to be an Oberith, an ancient evil that manifested itself from the abyss and has been tied to Earth for millions of years. Strangely though, Pazuzu finds reference in a huge number of ancient societies, from Mesopotamia to Sumeria to ancient Babylon. In some, he is revered as a saviour and protector, others a demon who should never be summoned. Followers of the Oberith often carve wooden statues of the demon and worship him in the hope that Pazuzu will one day reveal his true name to them. No thanks. And coming in at the top spot, number 1, we have Azazel. Azazel, or Satan, or Lucifer, or the devil, or Baphomet. You know this guy. He's the king of all demonic possession, and he loves nothing more than a group of teenagers standing around a pentagram and beckoning him forward into the mortal realm. The Horn Prince is heavily related to the image of the goat, and we often see him depicted with hooves, horns, and a tail. But this actually has some substance to it. In Abrahamic society, a priest would whisper the prayers of a village into the ears of a goat, and then sacrifice it in the hopes that their prayers would be answers. But in fear of Azazel corrupting the goat, they select an extra goat, often referred to as a scapegoat, and use it as a decoy. They'd then send it out into the desert, hoping they'd wasted a little bit of time for the devil. Now, we all know that's probably not the case. He's a tricky one. In the Dead Sea Scrolls, Azazel is referred to in the Book of Giants, and connects him with the story of the fallen angels. In this, he teaches men the art of war, and also teaches women the art of witchcraft and painting the body. Generally, Azazel pops up in pretty much every possession story ever, and it's probably wiser just to avoid him altogether. Speak of the devil, and the devil shall appear.
Coming in at 5, Boogeyman. The Boogeyman is a mythical creature used by adults to frighten children into good behavior. This demonic creature has no specific appearance, and conceptions vary drastically by household and culture, but it is commonly depicted as a masculine or androgynous monster that punishes children for misbehavior. The Boogeyman, or a somewhat related creature, can be found in every culture, and is used for scaring children into good behavior depending on what purpose needs serving, often based on a warning from the child's authority figure. The term Boogeyman is sometimes used as a non-specific personification or metonym for terror, and in some cases, the devil. While the description of the Boogeyman differs on cultural levels, there are often some shared similarities to the creatures. Many of these demonic creatures are depicted as having claws, talons, and sharp teeth. Along with that, the majority of boogeymen are of the spirit variety, while the minority are demons, witches, and other legendary creatures. Some are even described to have certain animal features such as horns, hooves, and bug-like appearances. When examining the personality traits of the boogeyman, they are most easily divided into 3 categories: the kind that punish misbehaved children, the kind that are more prone to violence, and the kind that protect the innocent. However, they all relate in the same way, being that they all exist to teach young children a lesson. The more vicious boogeymen are said to steal children at night and even eat them. Sucks to be those kids. Coming in at number 4, Annabelle. Annabelle is a fictional character in the Conjuring universe. The character is a haunted doll based on accounts by paranormal investigators and authors Ed and Lorraine Warren, with the doll first appearing in the 2013 film The Conjuring. Annabelle is a reportedly haunted Raggedy Ann doll. According to Ed and Lorraine Warren, self-described paranormal investigators and demonologists, a student nurse was gifted the doll back in 1968. According to reports, the doll behaved strangely, exhibiting malicious and frightening behavior. It was at this point that the Warrens were called in, and they removed the doll to their museum after pronouncing it demonically possessed. The doll was kept in a glass box at the Warrens Occult Museum in Monroe, Connecticut. The story served as an inspiration for the opening scene of The Conjuring, where the doll is depicted as a sinister, worn-out porcelain doll, as well as its spin-offs, Annabelle, Annabelle Creation, and Annabelle Comes Home. In the Conjuring universe, the doll is a powerful demonic entity that, despite being able to exist independently, frequently latches onto a porcelain doll to torment those who own it. Annabelle is considered the most dangerous and powerful, and has a weird habit of wandering around unseen. Coming in at number 3, the Malebranche. The Malebranche are the demons in the Inferno of Dante's Divine Comedy, who guard Beligia 5 of the 8th Circle. Vulgar and quarrelsome, their duty is to force the corrupt politicians to stay under the surface of a boiling lake of pitch. When Dante and Virgil meet them, the leader of the Malebranche, Malacoda, assigns a troop to escort the poets safely to the next bridge. Many of the bridges were destroyed in the earthquakes that happened at the death of Christ, which Malacoda describes enabling the time this takes place to be calculated. The troop hook and torment one of the Barretters, identified by early commentators as Ciampolo, whose names some Italian grafters, and then tricks the Malebranche in order to escape back into the pitch. The demons are dishonest and malicious. The promise of safe conduct the poets have received turns out to have limited value, and there is no next bridge, so that Dante and Virgil are forced to escape from them. Coming in at number 2, Mundus. Mundus, also known as the Prince of Darkness, is a devil prince from Devil May Cry who ruled the demon world 2,000 years ago, overthrowing the previous rule of the demon world and threatening the human world. Sometime after conquering the devil's throne, Mundus's rule was challenged by the demon god Argosax, and a great war followed that divided the underworld into two sides. Upon trying to take over the human world, the demon swordsman Sparda rebelled and defeated him and his enemies, sealing him away in a vault on Mallet Island. To quote Tomio Otsubu, "Visually he looks like a god. He purposely makes himself look godlike, so we took that to heart by making his silhouette godly and majestic." The crumbling second form is meant to show how pitiful he really is in contrast with the majesty of that first form. Mundus's appearance when he battles Dante is that of a gigantic living statue of an aging muscular bearded man with enormous feathered wings, resembling figures such as Zeus or even God. During his final battle with Dante, portions of the statue began to break away, revealing a grotesque writhing mass of living tissue, with 3 eyeballs and hundreds of hands coming out of it. In the game he is depicted as the epitome of evil. He has no compassion for his minions and acts without regard to their loyalty, killing one of his own generals, Griffin, after the latter failed to defeat Dante. His powers include supernatural strength, supernatural durability, demonic energy, manipulation, and flight. He also is capable of demon creation, mind manipulation, power augmentation, as well as orb summoning. And finally, coming in at number 1, Payman. King Payman is a spirit named in the Lesser Key of Solomon and appears as the 9th spirit in the Gosha, the 22nd spirit in the Pseudo-Monarchia Daemonim, and the Dictionary Infernal. The Gosha, Weah, and Duplanty warn that if King Payman appears alone, a sacrifice must be made to summon Babel and Abalam, 2 kings who serve under him but do not always accompany him. These 3 sources also state that he rules 200 legions of spirits, some of which are of the order of angels and the rest powers. In the Gosha, Weah, Duplanty, and Sloane MS-3824, he is described as a man riding a dromedary camel, preceded by men playing loud music, usually trumpets. Sloane MS-3824 describes the camel as crowned, while the rest describe King Payman himself as crowned. The Gosha and Weah both describe him as teaching science and answering all questions, specifying that his knowledge includes all arts and secret things such as knowledge regarding the earth, its waters, and the winds. The Gosha and the Weah also claim that he has the ability to bestow dignities and lordships, as well as credit him with granting familiars. In Abramelin, King Payman's powers include knowledge of past and future events, clearing up doubts, making spirits appear, creating visions, acquiring and dismissing servant spirits, reanimating the dead for several years, flight, remaining underwater indefinitely, and general abilities to make all kinds of things and all sorts of people and armor appear at the behest of his magician. Coming in at number 5, we have Azazel from Fallen. Azazel is a fallen angel whose evil influence led to the total corruption of humanity. Isn't that fun? Due to being the leader among the fallen angels, the Jewish Book of Enoch commands its readers to ascribe all sin to him. His description has varied throughout history, with him originally being one of heaven's angels, a gloriously beautiful man with wings on his back. However, when he was cast down to earth and became fallen, his beauty became corrupted, in turn taking on a demonic appearance. Once cast down to earth, he became a leader of the Grigori, a group of angels who married mortal women and produced a line of monstrous children. He then began teaching evil to humans, teaching mankind of warfare and the art of deception, before finally teaching us about witchcraft. Now, Azazel has had a big screen appearance in the 1998 crime drama Fallen, which follows homicide detective John Hobbs, who witnesses the execution of serial killer Edgar Reese. However, soon after the execution, the killings begin happening again. In the movie, Azazel evilly outwits Denzel Washington's character, with it being revealed that Azazel's true power is being able to jump from house to house with a passing touch. Coming in at number 4, we have Beelzebub. Beelzebub is a Semitic deity that was worshipped in the Philistine city of Ekron. He is often linked with Satan by Christians. In demonology, he is one of the 7 princes of the underworld. In Christian writings, writings, the name Beelzebub appears as an alternate name to Satan, and like I said, is commonly described as placed higher in the underworld's hierarchy. According to occultist Johannes Wierus, Beelzebub is the chief lieutenant of Lucifer, the emperor of the underworld, and presides over the Order of the Fly. Now, throughout history, there have been confirmed reports of Beelzebub here on Earth, with one of the last hailing from France. It began in the early 1600s when a young nun called Madeleine began having fits, shouting obscenities and making claims she had engaged in lewd sexual acts with demons and witches. It was ultimately decided that she was possessed by none other than Satan himself, aka Beelzebub. The possession only worsened from there, with them being forced to bring in Sebastian Micheli, the local Grand Inquisitor, to aid in an exorcism. Coming in at number 3, we have Payment from Hereditary. Payment is a spirit named in the Lesser Key of Solomon and is one of the kings of Kinistan, more obedient to Lucifer than most others, and has 200 legions of demons under his rule. He is said to have a great voice and roars as soon as he comes, speaking in this manner for a while, until the conjurer compels him, and then he answers the questions he has been asked. Payment teaches all arts, philosophy and sciences, and secret things. He can reveal all mysteries of the earth, wind and water, what the mind is, and everything in between. However, although what he may offer is knowledge, this does not make him good. His depiction in the Ari Aster movie Hereditary should have taught us this. He is a duplicitous demon and perhaps one of the most devastating entities found in modern horror. In Hereditary, Payment is summoned as a cult ritual by the deceased mother of Annie, played by Toni Collette, who is then forced to protect her family from Payment's persuasions. The evil demon first targets the daughter Charlie before going after the son Peter, and of course Payment invades the body. He commits unspeakable horrors that horror cinema hasn't been blessed with in a very, very long time. Coming in at number 2, the Cenobites, Hellraiser. To quote the Hell Priest Pinhead, explorers in the furthest regions of experience, demons to some, angels to others. And that is the perfect way to describe the Cenobites from the works of Clive Barker. The Cenobites are extra-dimensional beings who appear in Barker's works such as the Hellbound Heart, the Scarlet Gospels, and the 9 Hellraiser movies. It is said that they can only reach Earth's reality through a schism in time and space, which is opened and closed using certain unearthly artifacts, one of course being the puzzle box called the Lament Configuration. To quote Clive Barker in the Hellbound Heart, why then was he so distressed to set eyes upon them? Was it the scars that covered every inch of their bodies, the flesh cosmetically punctured and sliced and infibulated, then dusted down with ash? Was it the smell of vanilla they brought with them, the sweetness of which did little to disguise the stench beneath? Or was it as the light grew and he scanned them more closely, he saw nothing of joy or even humanity in their maimed faces, only desperation and an appetite that made his bowels ache to be voided? The Cenobites all have horrific mutilations and or body piercings, and wear fetishistic black leather that often resembles butchery garments or religious vestments. Now, aside from their grotesque physical depictions, the Cenobites are terrifyingly potent. They come from a disturbing labyrinth where sadomasochism and torture rule. Their ultimate goal is to drag the victims who open the special puzzle box back to their violent netherworld to suffer endless torture. And finally, coming in at number 1, we have Pazuzu, the Exorcist. In ancient Mesopotamian religion, Pazuzu was the king of the demons of the wind, brother of Humbaba and son of the god Hambi. He also represented the southwestern wind, the bearer of storms and drought. Now, although Pazuzu is himself considered to be an evil spirit, he drives and frightens away other evil spirits, therefore protecting humans against plagues and misfortunes. However, don't get your hopes up because this dude is straight up evil. He was, of course, the evil spirit that possessed a young Regan MacNeil in the 1971 novel The Exorcist, as well as the subsequent movie. In the movie, Pazuzu is both named as the demon antagonist of Regan and the unwitting helper of Father Philip Lamont, as he seeks to free Regan from the demon's grip. It should be said that no cinematic demon has ever been more potent or terrifying than that of Pazuzu, aside from maybe the red tongue-licking demon in Insidious. Not a fan of that one, not a fan at all. Now in The Exorcist, Pazuzu finds its way to the US after being discovered during an archaeological dig in the Middle East. There it infiltrates the body of Regan, with the intention of subsuming her soul. Lovely stuff, isn't it? Pazuzu in turn makes Regan commit some unspeakable acts, such as stabbing herself with a crucifix in areas that we won't mention here, and of course attacking her own mother, before aggressively vomiting up green pea soup. And then of course the infamous scene of Regan spinning her head 180 degrees. What a lovely sight. This 1973 Best Picture winner is still one of the highest grossing films ever made. However, saying that, it is best to steer clear of Pazuzu. There's no need to invoke him, especially not in the middle of the night in front of your mirror. Just cover that thing with a sheet. Coming in at number 5, we have the Ferryman. This is a demon who appears for a short amount of time in a movie that I didn't particularly enjoy, but he's certainly made an impact on a lot of people, that's for sure. Released in 2019 and directed by Gary Doberman, Annabelle Comes Home is the 7th installment in the Conjuring universe and the sequel to Annabelle and Annabelle Creation. Starring the likes of McKenna Grace, Madison Iseman and Katie Saariv, along with Vera Farmiga and Patrick Wilson, the film follows the Warrens' child Judy, who is left alone with her babysitter when her parents go to investigate a case. However, when an unexpected guest arrives, Annabelle is set free, and demonic activity spirals inside of the home. Now, we're not going to be focusing on Annabelle for this number, we're saving her for later. Instead, we'll be discussing the Ferryman. The Ferryman is one of the many antagonists in the Conjuring franchise, making his first appearance in Annabelle Comes Home. He is a dark and evil spirit who is rumored to take souls to the afterlife for a price, but instead of delivering them to the afterlife, he collects them and tortures them. The Ferryman was investigated by Ed and Lorraine Warren after the death of a girl by its hands. They conducted interviews by those affected, who told them stories of the Ferryman, who demanded a toll, or else their souls would be left. The Warrens collected coins from corpses that were cursed by the demon and had them blessed and locked away in their museum. However, in Annabelle Comes Home, this demon is woken up when the coins are tampered with, unleashing the hellish force, and he is truly terrifying to behold. Before we jump into number 4, be sure to give this video a big thumbs up, it really helps out a lot in the YouTube algorithm. Coming in at number 4, we have Bathsheba Sherman. Bathsheba Sherman was the first villain to traumatize all of us in the Conjuring universe, with her first appearing in The Conjuring. Released in 2013 and directed by James Wan, The Conjuring of course stars Patrick Wilson and Vera Farmiga as Ed and Lorraine Warren, paranormal investigators famous for being involved in prominent cases of hauntings, including the Amityville Horror. In the movie, the couple are contacted by the Perrons, a family who recently moved into a farmhouse and become tormented by a demonic presence inside of the home, with Ed and Lorraine Warren attempting to rid the family of the entity. Now, Bathsheba Sherman is the main antagonist of The Conjuring. She torments the family and possesses the mother Carolyn. Now, Bathsheba was a woman born in 1812 who was said to be related to a woman executed for witchcraft in Salem back in 1692. Jumping forward in time, she went on to marry a rich farmer and gave birth to a child. However, she attempted to use this child as a sacrifice to the devil, but was ultimately caught by her husband. Exposed, she climbed a tree on her property, proclaimed her love for the devil, and proceeded to curse those who would take her land, before ultimately taking her own life. Her spirit would now reside on the land and torment all those who tried to live there, aka the Perron family, who become the demon's victims before the Warrens step in to put an end to it. Coming in at number 3, we have La Llorona. Hailing from arguably the worst movie on our entire list, La Llorona is a terrifying entity that is not to be messed with. Released in 2019 and directed by Michael Chavez, The Curse of La Llorona is a supernatural horror starring the likes of Linda Cardellini, Raymond Cruz, and Patricia Velasquez, and follows a mother in 1973 who must save her children from a malevolent spirit named La Llorona and wishes to steal them. In real life, this spirit is also referred to as the Weeping Woman or the Wailer, and is a spirit who roams waterfront areas mourning her drowned children. Legend states that a beautiful woman named Maria married a rich conquistador with whom she bore 2 children. However, on one particular day she caught her husband with another woman, and in a fit of rage she drowned her children, with her suffering immediate regret. She then drowned herself but was unable to enter the afterlife, and instead was trapped in purgatory and roamed earth searching for children to steal. So of course this seemed to be the perfect supernatural story to bring into the Conjuring universe. However, it failed to make any real kind of impact, with the movie falling short. However, despite that, the character of La Llorona is still pretty damn terrifying nonetheless. But she doesn't scare me because I ain't a child. can't snatch me. Coming in at number 2 we have Annabelle. Annabelle is perhaps the most popular and feared demon in the Conjuring universe, with her first appearing in The Conjuring before being introduced as the main antagonist in Annabelle, Annabelle Creation, and Annabelle Comes Home. Annabelle is considered to be one of the most dangerous and haunted items collected by Ed and Lorraine Warren over the years, with the demonic entity latching itself onto a porcelain doll, in the movies that is. In real life it took hold of a Raggedy Ann doll. Now, the Annabelle demon is a powerful demonic entity who torments those who have possession of the doll, with her moving around unseen. In The Conjuring, where she first appeared, Annabelle was released by Bathsheba Sherman, who we discussed before, with Bathsheba going to the home of the Warrens as revenge for investigating her home, and releasing Annabelle. However, let's look at the doll's backstory. In the movie Annabelle, a pregnant woman is gifted the doll by her husband. Not long after, Annabelle Higgins and her boyfriend, members of a satanic cult, break into the home, turning the doll into a conduit for evil when Annabelle takes her own life. A demon possesses the doll, posing as the ghost of Annabelle Higgins. We quickly discover how truly powerful Annabelle is when she begins to attract spirits from a nearby graveyard as the Warrens are attempting to transport her to their home. They manage to fashion a case out of glass from a decommissioned church though, and the evil is contained. But for how long? And finally, in at number 1 we have Valak, the nun. I mean, there is no demon stronger and more terrifying than the evil Valak, who first appeared in The Conjuring 2 before being the main antagonist in the prequel movie The Nun. Released in 2018 and directed by Corin Hardy, The Nun follows a Roman Catholic priest and a nun as they uncover a dark secret in 1952 Romania. Of course, we see Bonnie Aarons reprising her role as Valak, the demon nun. As we know, in The Conjuring 2, Valak was the antagonist who tormented Lorraine Warren, showing her horrific visions of her husband's potential death, and fighting off against her at the end of the movie. Now, I won't spoil what happens there for those who haven't seen The Conjuring 2, so we'll primarily just focus on The Nun, the prequel of sorts that was really Now, in the prequel, it is revealed that the monastery was built by a duke centuries prior who became obsessed with black magic and attempted to summon a demonic force. However, before he could, he was killed by fellow members of the Vatican, and the rift was sealed with the blood of Christ. When the monastery gets bombed during World War II, the evil spirit is released and takes on the form of a nun, with the demon being revealed to be Valak, who is now walking freely around the monastery every night, killing people one by one. She is truly terrifying in her physical form as the nun, and is utterly relentless and despicable. She rarely speaks but is wickedly smart, even tricking the Warrens in The Conjuring 2. She also teamed up with Annabelle, making for two formidable yet terrifying opponents. Coming in at number 5 we have Abaddon. The Old Testament is kind of like the dark side of the Bible. It's filled with stories of death, destruction, and more death. Abaddon, also known as the Destroyer and Angel of Abyss, is one of the characters in the good book that is not so good. Remember in the book of Revelations when God destroys most of the earth and its inhabitants? Well, Abaddon is a key player in the brutal event that left the world in shreds. According to the story, 7 trumpets sounded to mark each step of the apocalypse. The first 4 attacked the earth, water, and skies, killing a third of the planet's wildlife, vegetation, fresh water, oceans, and light. This indirectly caused the death of many people, but it wasn't until Abaddon was unleashed that God struck humans directly. As the 5th trumpet sounded, a star fell from the sky, opening a bottomless pit in Earth's crust. Smoke funneled out of the dark abyss, and out came a horde of mutant locusts, commanded by Abaddon to inflict intense pain to the people of Earth. Equipped with a scorpion tail, these little monstrosities set out to torture humans for 5 months, but not to kill them. That would have been too humane, I suppose.
Coming in at number 4 we have Legion. Perhaps the most haunting story in the New Testament is that of Legion. He lived among the dead deep within the tombs, appearing not much more alive than a corpse. At night, the townspeople would hear his screams and avoid the man said to be possessed by the unclean spirits, also known as demons. No longer could they control him, he kept breaking loose from the chains that bound him at his wrists and ankles. Night and day he wandered the wild while cutting his own flesh with sharp stones and shrieking in agony. One day while traveling along the lake to the region of the Gerasenes, Jesus gets out of his boat and is abrasively approached by the man of no name. Dropping to his knees before him, the man begs Jesus not to torture him, for the Lord had commanded the evil spirit spirits to emerge. Jesus then asked, "What is your name?" to which the possessed man replied, "My name is Legion, for we are many." Fearing that they would be cast away into the abyss, the many demons that possessed the man asked to be sent along the pigs in the nearby hillside. Jesus granted the demons permission, and off they went to the thousands of pigs. Now possessed by the evil spirits, the herd plunged to their death and were drowned in the lake below. This man was finally free from the legion of demons.
Coming in at number 3 is Berith or Baalberith. In Christian demonology, this demon is considered the chief secretary of the underworld or Great Duke of Hell. This high-ranking official is often seen as the same as Beelzebub in some theories, but in this context they're not to be confused. His name apparently means God of the Covenant, so if any demons in hell need paperwork signed, Berith is the guy to get the job done. He's often depicted as a demonic soldier riding a red horse and sporting a golden crown upon his head. In other grimoires, his skin is also red. This demon is known for manipulating and tempting men to commit heinous acts, like blasphemy and murder. Berith is also said to be one of the demons who possessed a nun in the famous Louviere's exorcism case.
Coming in at number 2 we have Adrammelech, known as the Fire King. The name Adrammelech only appears in the Old Testament twice, but his stories pack a mean punch, especially with children. The first time he's mentioned, he's regarded as the son of the Assyrian king. He ends up murdering his father in cold blood while in the temple worshipping his idol. The worst part is that this story is relatively tame compared to the next time we see the name Adrammelech. In the Book of Kings, he's mentioned as being a sun god worshipped by the Sepharvites, who were sacrificing in his honor by burning them alive, hence the Fire King nickname. Adrammelech is often depicted with the torso of a man, the head of a mule, and the tail of a peacock. Okay, so that doesn't sound as scary as you're expecting a demon to be, but there's something unsettling about his looks. However, in other lore, he's considered Satan's stylist, so he must be doing something right. Another nickname he holds is Chancellor of Hell, which kinda reminds me of Supreme Chancellor Palpatine from Star Wars. Interestingly enough, both villains indirectly cause children to be killed. Adrammelech with the children sacrificed in his honor, and manipulated Anakin with the younglings, but I digress. In Robert Silverberg's short story Basilisk, he's described as guile and mischief than Satan.
In the number 1 spot is none other than Beelzebub. If you've ever heard the song Bohemian Rhapsody, then you've heard the name Beelzebub. I won't sing it again for you, I sang it in a previous video. I won't do it again. He's considered one of the big wigs in the fiery pits of hell and is sometimes an alternative name for the devil himself in Christianity. Beelzebub is one of the most powerful demons. In the Gospel, according to Mark, the Pharisees disparagingly accused Jesus of exorcising demons by the power of Beelzebub, and even refers to Beelz as Prince of Devils. He's also considered one of the 7 princes of hell by German bishop and theologian Peter Binsfeld. In 1589, Binsfeld paired each of the deadly sins with a demon, ranking them the highest authority in hell. Beelzebub has the honor of representing gluttony. Lord of the Flies is another name for this terrifying demon, given he's the leader of the Order of the Fly. He's often depicted as an actual fly or a grotesque creature with massive wings. It is said that Beelzebub was a prominent figure in the Salem witch trials. You know, the mass witch hysteria towards the end of the 17th century that had more than 200 people accused of witchcraft and led to the slaying of 19 people. Yeah, well, Beelzebub was blamed for corrupting said people and turning them on a path to Satan.
Coming in at number 5, we've got Danny/Malfador. Well, we'll kick it off pretty simple with a throwback to the horror movies of the 80s. Witchboard is a Ouija-themed romp through the mean streets of California, ranging from house parties to construction sites to an ever-infamous lake sequence. It's pretty cheesy, but there are definitely some good bits if you're into 80s horror. We kick off the introduction to evil presences with a good old-fashioned group session. While her boyfriend is off getting drunk, Linda gets her hands on her ex's Ouija board and summons a presence in front of a crowd, and that is not a euphemism. The partygoers meet Danny, a young boy who died a tragic death and is now communicating with everyone through the board. Things get heated between Linda's current and ex-boyfriends, which results in Danny slashing the tires of a car. Whoops. Danny's still a good kid though. The next day, Linda decides to call up Danny again and see how he's doing, but this time she brings out the board all alone without any guidance. Bad call, as the presence that shows up says he's Danny but is hiding his true identity. Always a bad sign. The presence helps Linda find her engagement ring and never gets dismissed. This means it can stick around and do what it wants, wherever it wants, whenever it wants. And what it wants is to kill any and everyone who might get in its way. See, this presence that claimed to be Danny on the second day was actually that of Carlos Malfador, an evil spirit. The man was an axe murderer in life, gunned down by police while trying to escape capture. As it turns out, he lived in Linda's house way back before she moved in. He'd been waiting for an opportunity to possess someone for ages, and this was the perfect time. Using progressive entrapment, he slowly but surely works towards being able to take over Linda and enter back into the living world. This results in plenty of death and destruction along the way, including almost getting her boyfriend arrested for the murders. So while you're using a Ouija board, do some research about where you're using it. If a bunch of nasty stuff occurred at your location, don't do it. Also keep an eye out for demons pretending to be other people. That one's a little harder to make sure of though. Coming in at number 4, we've got Kelly. This name doesn't sound so bad, but if you like your head to remain upon your shoulders, avoid it at all costs. Seriously though, this demon is sending out all of the warning signals possible, so if you end up dead, it really is your fault. She first showed up when a young lad was trying out Ouija with his older brother and cousin. They set up the board, got things ready to rock, and began to ask questions. With the lights out and candles lit, things were about to get spooky. And spooky things got. The young lad had a doll with him at the time, and this doll went by the name of Kelly. Uh-oh. Of course, it was good to have such a figure for comfort while doing something so potentially scary. So when the planchette started moving, he reached for his doll. However, Kelly was missing in action. Panicked, the kid looked back to the board and saw that it was spelling something. K-E-L-L-Y. Oh my goodness. Soon after, the ritual ended and the boys were considerably shaken. The youngest one looked frantically for his doll, but to no avail. However, later she was found, without her head. Someone or something had taken the doll, popped its dome off, and hidden the pieces away. If you ask me, this is a kind of warning, a sign of things to come. The next time you try to use a Ouija board around here, the demon might spell your name. And then your head might go missing. Not the kind of injury that's easy to recover from, yeah? Coming in at number 3, we've got Doris. Back to some movie magic for a moment, Doris is the exceptionally upsetting demon featured in Blumhouse's Ouija series. She turned out to be the main villain in the first one, and then the prequel explores her tragic backstory. Demons with sad stories are always the worst, eh? You want to sympathize with them, but then they're out here trying to kill everyone and singing sad songs. It's a whole mess. Doris had her mouth sewed shut by her mother to prevent evil spirits and voices from taking over, and eventually passed on, becoming one of these presences summoned by the board. Once she became a demon, Doris possessed many people. Anyone foolish enough to summon her using a board would be taken over and killed in horrific ways. Doris will make people hang from Christmas lights by their own doing, or put their heads through porcelain sinks. That's gotta hurt, and there's no coming back from that kind of head trauma. There's some swimming pool antics, some stitch-mouthed ghost antics, the whole 9 yards. Even though Doris was just a girl, as a demon she has a whole lot of anger and terror to express. And what better way to express your demonic urges than through a killing spree? Sounds like fun. So if you'd like to keep your bathroom pristine and your head unmunched, stay away from that Ouija board. Coming in at number 2, we've got Shush. This one comes from another supposedly true tale where average folks messed with a board and paid the price. Everyone knows how embarrassing it can be to be shushed, especially by a stranger. So what about a paranormal stranger? One with the potential to shut you up for good? It doesn't sound like a whole lot of fun if I'm being totally honest, but that's exactly what happened here. 2 friends decided to take a swing at some Ouija board antics and plopped one down on their table. They tried for a little while to contact any sort of presence, but came up short. After asking a few more questions, they returned to the top, asking questions like, is there anyone here that would like to communicate with us? This apparently was the last straw, as the planchette immediately moved to no. Thinking this was their chance to finally talk with someone from the other side, they pushed further, asking more questions. But the presence did not appreciate this and used the planchette to spell out S-H-U-S-H. Shush. Holy moly, it just wanted some peace and quiet. After this, the room felt considerably colder and the pals didn't want to see what would happen if they didn't follow the presence's instructions. Something tells me it wouldn't have been pleasant. I could see a demon stealing someone's voice or permanently sealing their mouth for not being quiet when told. So who wants to play the quiet game? I'll start. Coming at number 1, we've got Zozo. Now, you know we couldn't do a Ouija demon list without including one of the newest and most prolific entries into the ghostly pop culture oeuvre. Zozo seemingly hasn't been around that long, and his popularity is largely attributed to internet culture gassing him up. There might be brief mentions of this demon in assorted old compendiums and grimoires, but nothing concrete, and the old writings don't really connect him to Ouija boards or possession either. But Zozo is a famous demon now, and those tend to do exactly what people expect them to do. The more we discuss him, the stronger and more bold he grows. Many who have encountered this demon feel its presence for years after the fact, regardless of whether they closed the session or not. One tale recounts a man almost seeing his drown in the bathtub, attacked by Zozo. Others say that the demon acts like a poltergeist, ruining their homes and injuring them frequently. If your planchette moves from Z to O to Z to O, yes, I am Canadian, say goodbye and throw it in a fire. Nothing good will come from any further interaction. Coming in at number 5, we've got Yaldabaoth. This one's a super big Persona 5 spoiler, so if you haven't played it yet or are still waiting for the Switch version, sorry, maybe skip to the next number. The Holy Grail, the God of Control, the fake Igor. This is the absolute biggest bad in Persona 5. After the Phantom Thieves defeat all of the other more publicly menacing enemies and assume it'll be smooth sailing to the end, this guy shows up to ruin everything. And he totally does ruin everything. As the manifestation of humanity's wish for order and control, this mecha angel can control people's desires and their cognition of the world around them. He considers himself a god above all other beings. Talk about a superiority complex. As such, he is also representative of the 7 deadly sins: lust, gluttony, greed, sloth, wrath, envy, pride, you name it. He has the power to destroy the world through a hard reset of everything, or by enslaving humanity through a false reality. Although he didn't begin with all that power. Yaldabaoth holds the human world in the palm of his hand, and is made more powerful by the will of humans as a whole. The more people that wish for a strong leader and to be told what to do, the more mighty he becomes. Upon gaining sentience, he saw how corrupt society was and decided that humans should be met with ruin. This is a little bit paradoxical though, because he does have the ability to influence the will of the public. As such, he could steer them in a better direction, but instead allows them to continue on the same path in order to ensure his rule over the world. All this power makes him arrogant, believing that he is truly the ultimate being. That kind of arrogance makes me suspect that he would destroy the whole world on a whim, and he would have got away with it too if it weren't for those meddling thieves. Number 4, Beelzebub. No, not Beelzebub. This demon isn't quite as sick nasty on the drums. However, he is the demon of gluttony, the devil of pride, the false god. He's one of the 3 most prominent and powerful of the fallen angels alongside Satan and Leviathan. This guy sits atop Hell's hierarchy like it's nothing. Known for causing jealous murders and inciting wars, this is another demon who loves to watch the world burn. His aim is to cover the world with terror and corruption. And that's not too hard for a demon with dominion over decay and decomposition. You'll know it's him by the swarms of flies that surround him, or if he decides to transform into a giant hideous fly himself. And unlike Seth Brundle, Beelzebub can change back into his human form, no problems. These flies can even carry souls into the abyss. There are a few ways this fiery fly fellow might end the world. One would be raising an army of chaos at the drop of a hat. Yeah, that would be bad. Although, if I know anything about demons, I would say he might try some other stuff first. As a demon of gluttony, it's likely that his plans are already in effect. He could be very well influencing powerful humans, getting them to encourage overconsumption across the board. Why else would we be eating fast food and throwing away unused groceries when there are starving people out there? What other reason could there be behind the insane burning of fossil fuels and the constant purchasing of plastic gadgets that we don't need? It's Beelzebub trying to make us hollow out our planet. It's gotta be. If it's up to him, we won't go out with a bang, but with a whimper. Coming in at number 3, we've got Cenobites. Speaking of bangs and whimpers, if these terrifying extra-dimensional torture play demons take over, we'll be doing a lot of both. Hailing from Clive Barker's extended universes, the Cenobites have collective power unlike any other. To quote Pinhead himself, they are explorers in the further regions of experience. Demons to some, angels to others. Clad in leather, with lots of open wounds to boot, these BDSM-loving aliens can only come to Earth through schisms in time and space, opened by unearthly artifacts. When summoned, they are known to subject their victims to emotional and psychological torture far beyond what any human could have previously imagined. With a variety of powers, this is no big deal to the Cenobites. Hooks and chains that can be summoned from any shadow to rip and tear at the flesh of those under their influence, telekinetic powers, and otherworldly strength are just a few of the many ways they can drive humans mad with pain and pleasure. The pain is obviously being delivered in much higher quantities. As detailed in Hellraiser 2, they actually live in another maze-like dimension, and they bring their quarry into this labyrinth for unimaginable torture. There are also beastly abominations dwelling in this dimension that could be released into the human world, looking for some flesh to consume. Horrible monstrosities aren't well known for their self-regulation either. The Cenobites don't seem too concerned with destroying the planet in earlier earlier iterations of the Hellraiser series, but starting in Hellraiser 3, Hell on Earth, it seems like some can break free of whatever was limiting that urge before. Pinhead acts on his own, flying in the face of previous Cenobite behavior, and uses his powers to cause all sorts of pain and destruction. This implies that other Cenobites have the capacity to do the same, which could spell out major calamity on Earth if they all choose to hop over one dimension en masse. Y'all better get ready for some intense pain and pleasure or you're in for a bad time. They have such sights to show us. Filling out our number 2 spot, we've got the Icon of Sin. Somebody call Doom Guy, we need a little help. The final boss in Doom 2, Hell on Earth, this Baphomet-headed demon spawner could end our world in a heartbeat. In fact, it already did in Doom 2. Just because it was killed in the end doesn't mean the world isn't still blasted to smithereens. There's no taking back that kind of worldwide collapse. The Earth is already ruined by the time our heroic space marine shows up to kick ass and chew bubblegum. Wait, no, that's the wrong FPS. Getting back to how this giant robo-devil would destroy the world, it literally infinitely spawns demons from hell into our world. How does it do this? Well, in the Doom universe, humans have come up with some pretty ingenious teleportation technology. However, as teleportation tech is apt to do, it malfunctions and opens a portal to hell on Mars. We are led to believe that this problem only exists on Mars in the first game, but that would be too convenient, wouldn't it? In Doom 2, more portals open on Earth, and the Icon of Sin gets to chill in the bowels of hell and fire demon after demon through these portals to cause humans a whole lot of trouble. And if we're being real, nobody on Earth even comes close to the demon-slaying capabilities of the fictional Doom Guy. So if these portals open, and if this metal-headed brain demon decides to spawn a bunch of Hellions in the city streets, it's all over. And filling out our number 1 spot, we have the Saint of Killers from Preacher. Of all the demons on this list, only one has successfully killed both Satan and God. Yes, I did say a demon killed God. That deity-ending demon is the Saint of Killers from Preacher. Once a bloodthirsty Confederate soldier known as the Butcher of Gettysburg, the Saint of Killers decided to settle down with a woman and find peace. Still a man at this point, he fell in love, had a family, and was happy. Sadly, he lived in a time where medicine was scarce and happy endings even scarcer. Disease took its toll, and his family died when he was out looking for a cure. Upon finding their corpses, the last sliver of good inside him disappeared, and he became a force of pure hatred. He walked through the town of Ratwater and slaughtered every single citizen. Upon emptying out the local saloon, he took a shot and was killed by a tornado. His hate did not max out there though. No way. Instead, he was damned to hell and forced to relive his family's death over and over. Each time, he also lived through his slaughter of the Ratwater populace. Soon enough, he's sprung from hell to seek out and kill Jesse Custer, and well, the rest is history. Immortal and on a bloody quest for revenge against the world, the Saint of Killers is a killing machine. I mean, you probably got that bit from his name. His guns, a pair of Colt 1847 Walkers, were gifted to him by the Angel of Death. They never run out of ammunition, they never jam, and they are omni-deadly. That means they will not miss their target, and one shot will always kill, regardless of circumstance. It's like aimbot in real life. Can't kick this guy from the lobby. The guns can penetrate a dozen walls and actually drill a hole from one end of the earth to the other. Plus, he retains them even after dying, which coincidentally is how he kills God. So now he's up in heaven, ruling over paradise. And if he chose to do so, he could kill every last person on earth without breaking a sweat. And knowing the amount of hatred deep in his heart, he probably would without a second thought. Coming in at number 5, we've got Abizathebu. Fallen angels tend to have pretty wild names, so we'll kick off with a good one. Abizathebu, Abizathebu, Abizathebu. Keep saying it, I swear nothing bad will happen. While some angels fall from heaven and just chill in the sacrilege paradise that is hell, some have higher hopes for sure. Good old Abizathebu is one of those with goals, aspirations, a day planner fully loaded with terrible tasks. After following Beelzebub in a grand exit from the Holy Land, he became quite an important demon in hell. Most hell dwellers choose to follow a certain demon or become part of a legion of some sort. This fallen angel has control over all sorts of imprisoned souls. Some say that this charge is both a privilege and a burden though, but I would imagine the same is true of all sorts of tasks in hell. There's much more to this demon though. He doesn't just remain in hell for all of eternity. In fact, there's a wild story about what Abizathebu got up to above ground. After falling from heaven, he roamed about Egypt, eventually causing a pharaoh's heart to harden. This act of evil inspired the pharaoh to pursue the fleeing Israelites, which ended poorly to say the least. This pursuit resulted in the pharaoh's army being crushed by the Red Sea. Abizathibu himself was imprisoned in a pillar of water and forced to uphold a pillar of air until a temple's completion. That has to do terrible things to one's mind, so I'm sure whenever this demon escapes, he'll be ready to wreak some vengeful havoc. You'll be able to recognize this angel turned demon rather quickly too. He has two differently colored wings. One is bright red. So if you ever come across an entity with two different colored wings, one being red, you can probably be pretty sure, reasonably so, that it is Abizathibu. Be careful and watch yourself, as he is the demon of pride, known to lead people astray. Coming in number 4, we've got Furfur. Don't be fooled by the somewhat silly name on this one. Furfur is to be feared. A great Earl of Hell, he commands 29 legions of demons that can compel all sorts of atrocities to happen. Take in that his name could be a corruption of the Latin word furcifer, which means scoundrel. We love a good scoundrel around here, but be aware that when dealing with one face to face, he will almost always come away as the loser. He's been depicted as all sorts of different things, from an angel to a fox to a winged hart, which is essentially an older species of deer, plus wings of course. In those forms, Furfur has been known to trick and mislead people, as he is a pathological liar. The imagery of a tricky fox or deer has been used in myths and stories all across the world. Apparently, if you compel Furfur into a magical triangle though, he will revert to his true form and speak only the truth. Whether or not you want his scratchy demonic voice telling you truths is a matter of contention though. Trickery and shapeshifting are only the beginning of this entity's power. Furfur can force love between a man and woman, which often does not result in desirable outcomes. The actual method Furfur employs to make this false love happen is up in the air, but maybe double check your intentions if you find yourself falling in love in the woods. Furfur can also whip up destructive inclement weather, enormous cracks of lightning, tremendously loud thunder, and storms with rain and wind that put monsoons to shame are all under his control. So don't make him mad, lest you end up struck by lightning or drowned in torrential rainfall. If you summon this fallen angel, he may impart some knowledge upon you. Often this knowledge is of divine things and meant to instill happiness. So even though he is known as a demon, he's not all that bad. There are benefits to having him around if you can manage to avoid these storms and potential forced love. Coming at number 3, we've got Adramelech. Possibly an ex-angel, possibly a Sumerian sun god, Adramelech is worshipped by people around the world who wish to offer up sacrifices in exchange for power and wealth. Here's a fun fact: not only is he a chieftain of hell, he's also got a whole bevy of other interesting hellish responsibilities. Firstly, he's the Great Chancellor of Demons, which is pretty neat. He's also president of the Devil's General Council. Who knew the demons were so democratic and well organized? But here's the kicker, my favorite fact about Adramelech. He is the governor of the Devil's Wardrobe. Tell me you wouldn't want some fashion tips from the Devil's Wardrobe governor. Some seriously killer style on this dude. Probably has one of the original pairs of Satan shoes and everything. To ensure that he looks the part, he takes on the form of either a humanoid mule or a peacock. Or maybe sometimes he's a mule-peacock hybrid. All the above are probably true in some capacity. Be warned, even if you do encounter a fabulously dressed mule peacock man, he's not to be approached. He's described as an enemy of God, greater in ambition, guile, and mischief than Satan, a fiend more cursed, a deeper hypocrite. And we hear a lot of bad things about Satan all the time, so if Adramelech is worse and more cursed than the big guy down there, then we're in for some trouble. Maybe that's why all those hardcore streetwear enthusiasts are so pure evil. They're just channeling Adramelech. Coming in at number 2, we've got Andras. Now we're getting into some hardcore ones. Sure, we started with some fallen angels who might have a violent tendency or two or compel people to act in ways that contradict their morals, but that's all just part of life, right? Andras is straight up evil. He is powerful, deadly evil. The Grand Marquis of Hell, 63rd of the 72 Spirits of Solomon, and commanding 30 legions of demons. Boom. If Andros likes somebody, he teaches them to kill their enemies, masters, and servants. Yeah, all 3 categories. He is a bringer of bloodbath and brings them often. Nobody escapes when he's around. To make matters worse, he also gets a kick out of creating bad situations. Sowing discord among people is a chief interest, and trouble seems to follow him wherever he goes. It's hard to avoid him too, as he does take many forms and can really mess up your day if you're not ready. See, usually magicians look to summon Andros in order to gain some of his power, but he's not easily handled. He will often kill the very people who summoned him if they're not prepared for his arrival. Then he's just free to roam around with his owl head and crazy sword, murdering to his heart's content. Not great. Usually he looks sort of human, with an owl or raven head riding a dark wolf. very majestic, very cool, very dangerous. Seriously, watch yourself if you even catch a whiff of Andros activity. And finally at number 1, we've got Beelzebub. Somebody told me he's got a devil set aside, but I'm not really sure what to make about that. There's also talk of Beelzebub being pretty wicked with the guitar and him stealing a whole lot of souls with it. This is all just hearsay, mind you, so take it with a grain of salt. However, the mythical Beelzebub, famous fallen angel, does have a lot written about him in religious and historical texts. His name means Lord of the Flies, and he rules over those nasty little buggers down in hell. A third fallen angel after Lucifer and Leviathan, Beelzebub has a lot of sway in the lake of fire. He's Lucifer's chief lieutenant and wears that title with pride. And speaking of pride, he's also the demon of pride. Also gluttony, also the prince of false gods. Witches love him, as they often mention him as an object of desire, and Beelzebub is a name that popped up quite a bit during the Salem witch trials. His presence is everywhere, and many folks blame him for all sorts of demonic possessions throughout history. Just an absolute all-star when it comes to demonic activities. No wonder he's referenced so much in literature, music, movies, and more. Boy, howdy. Who knew angels could commit to such hard pivots? There are more of these than I originally thought, especially when you delve a little deeper. It makes me wonder what the angels who are still currently being angelic are up to.
Coming in at 5, Mephisto. Mephisto hails from Earth 616 in the Marvel Universe. He is an extra-dimensional demon whose origin is unknown. He rules a fiery pocket dimension that he calls Hell, or Hades. He calls his realm Hell in order to exploit Earth's human beings' belief in a single being of absolute evil, who is often referred to as Satan, who rules such a realm. Mephisto's domain is inhabited by himself, by lesser demons who serve him, and by the astral forms of certain deceased human beings, which have been trapped in the bodies of demons. Mephisto is a class 2 demon and possesses vast supernatural power, which is apparently inherent within him. He is energized by sources of evil in the human world: superhuman strength, superhuman speed, superhuman stamina, superhuman durability, regenerative healing factor, immortality, magical manipulation, shapeshifting, ensnare astral bodies, dimensional entrapment, netherworld dimensional power tap, reality manipulation, penance stare, immunity, and medium awareness. He is an experienced and highly skilled liar and strategist. He is also a highly skilled sorcerer with near infinite knowledge of arcane and occult subjects. Despite his immense power, Mephisto does have several significant limitations. He is unable to force the subjugation of any sentient being's will to his own without that being's deliberate submission. He is also incapable of reading the thoughts of any sentient being. Despite being one of the most powerful and evil people in all of existence, he was involved in one of the dumbest Marvel storylines, which saw him use his powers to divorce Peter Parker and Mary Jane Watson. Coming in at number 4, Ogdru Jahad. Ogdru Jahad, also referred to as the Ogdru Jahad, are the dragons of Revelation and are destined to bring about Ragnarok, the end of the world. They were once imprisoned in golden cocoons by the right hand of doom shortly after the creation of Earth, but not before they spawned 369 children known as the Ogdru Hem. They are the main antagonists of the Hellboy series. Inspired by H.P. Lovecraft's The Great Old Ones, the Ogdru Jahad are serpentine entities which once resided on and presided over Earth. They are pitiless, chaotic, bent on destruction and subjugation, and often so horrific in appearance that the mere sight of one of them sometimes induced madness. Now, some history of the Ogdru Jahad. In the beginning of time, God created an order of spirits. Of these, many of the greater spirits were sent to newborn Earth to oversee it as watchers. One of these spirits, Enum, created the Ogdru Jahad out of fire and mud. Ogdru Jahad then went on to give birth to the Ogdru Hem, who became Earth's first life forms. Ogdru Jahad is an immortal and vastly powerful, with his true nature defying description, with even its nature as multiple beings being ambiguous. In the film Hellboy, the Ogdru Jahad serve as the overarching enemy of the film, mentioned only a few times by name. They appear as vaguely cephalopod-like, resembling more their Lovecraftian influence. They are encased in their crystal shells somewhere in outer space. Coming in at number 3, Mal'Ganis. Mal'Ganis was one of the Nathrazim sent by Archimonde as a jailer of the Lich King in World of Warcraft. He was chosen to head up the plot to turn Prince Arthur's Menethil to darkness and make him the Lich King's greatest champion. Later he led the Scarlet Onslaught under the guise of Barian Westwind. During the breaking of Ner'zhul at the Kil'jaeden's command, a group of dreadlords including Mal'Ganis tortured the orc shaman Ner'zhul after he had escaped from Draenor to the Twisting Nether. However, with his sanity cracking, Mal'Ganis would eventually agree to serve Kil'jaeden. Now, Mal'Ganis is the final boss in the Starthrone of the Past, the fourth wing of the Caverns of Time that opened with the release of World of Warcraft, Wrath of the Lich King. In the Warcraft 3 scenario, The Culling, Mal'Ganis would always resurrect after a certain period and return to continue his corruption of the city. Mal'Ganis is one of the many demons summoned by Gul'dan in front of the tomb of Sargeras to attack the force of Azeroth in the climactic, disastrous battle at the Broken Shore. He has not appeared since, and his location is unknown. In at 2, the God Hand. The God Hand from the manga Berserk is a quantum verite of demon sovereigns who act as executors of the idea of evil's will by virtue of their desires being intrinsic to the entity. As the most powerful of demonkind, they reign over apostles as their masters. They are also responsible for granting normal bearers their reincarnated status of being in exchange for a sacrifice. They have also orchestrated large events that affected the course of humanity, as well as the state of the macrocosm. Now, it is worth noting that each member of the God Hand was once human and is a previous owner of the Crimson Beherit, which distinguished them as individuals destined to be reborn as the demon sovereigns they currently serve as. The God Hand is composed of the most powerful 5 of demonkind, so dominant that even the strongest of apostles are unquestionably subservient to them. They each possess specific reality-altering abilities, including spatial, physical, and metaphysical manipulation. Having molded their forms out of huge swells of collective human negativity, the God Hand exists in essence anywhere large concentrations of human thought swirl. Though extremely powerful within the profound layer of the astral world, their powers are drastically lessened on occasions when they choose to manifest rudimentary bodies in the physical world. And finally, coming in at number 1, Pazuzu. Pazuzu, also called Pazuzu, was the king of the demons of the wind, brother of Humbaba and son of god Hambi. He also represented the southwestern wind, the bearer of storms and drought. He is often depicted as a combination of diverse animal and human parts. He has the body of a man, the head of a lion or a dog, talons of an eagle, 2 pairs of wings, and a scorpion's tail. He also has his right hand up and left hand down. Now, it is Pazuzu's mythology that makes him so interesting. He is the demon of the southwest wind, as I previously mentioned, and known for bringing famine during dry seasons, and locusts during rainy seasons. Pazuzu was invoked in apotropic amulets which combat the powers of his rival, the malicious goddess Lamashtu, who is believed to cause harm to mother and child during childbirth. Although he himself is considered to be an evil spirit, he drives and frightens away other evil spirits, therefore protecting humans against plagues and misfortunes. This demon has been referenced numerous times in pop culture, with the most famous occurrence being in The Exorcist. In the 1971 novel and the film based on the novel, Pazuzu is supposedly the evil spirit which possesses Regan McNeil. He appears in the 1977 sequel Exorcist II: The Heretic as well. In this film, Pazuzu was both named as the demon antagonist of Regan and the unwitting helper of Father Philip Lamont as he seeks to free Regan from the demon's grip.